Charlie Rosen is a Tony-nominated multi-instrumentalist, arranger, composer, musical director, and producer. Playing over 70 instruments, Charlie grew up in a musical family in Los Angeles where he learned piano at the age of 3. He moved to New York City at 17, immersing himself in the Broadway scene. Charlie also made time to study film scoring and contemporary writing and production at Berklee College of Music. In 2018, Charlie combined his childhood love of video game music with his embrace of the golden era of big bands in his hugely popular project, the 8-Bit Big Band. Charlie's work on Broadway includes the musicals Moulin Rouge, American Psycho, Honeymoon in Vegas, and Be More Chill. Well, Charlie Rosen, welcome to the Power Station Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
As I understand, you're the son of a professional bassoonist, an organist who also did all sorts of instruments.
Yeah.
Because you play like every instrument under the sun. I think the New York Times says you played 77 different instruments.
Yeah, they made me count all the instruments in my apartment one day. It was pretty wild.
That's so awesome. How does somebody like you happen?
Yeah, my parents are both musicians, like you said. My mom is primarily a bassoon player, but is a woodwind doubler. And my dad's main musical passion is being a silent movie theater organist. So specifically, we have a Wurlitzer pipe organ installed in our house in Los Angeles. I was luckily given access to all these different instruments to just pick up at my leisure when I was growing up and play around with. And my parents had the ability to say, okay, well, at least let me show you how to make sound on it, or like how it works.
Right.
And they started me on piano lessons when I was 3 after they figured out the perfect pitch. I tried cello in elementary school for a while. Then when I was in middle school, I was playing in bands with my friends. And so that's when I got really into guitar and bass and drums. And I ended up going to high school as a drummer, actually, playing in big bands.
Huh.
Yeah, and I thought I was going to go to college and be a drummer. There weren't any upright bass players in this after-school big band I was in. So I ended up getting really serious about upright bass, and that's what I ended up going to Berklee for, was bass. Around that time, I got serious about brass, and I was taking composition lessons centered around piano, and so just a little bit of everything, but bass is what I identify with primarily.
Talk to me about your time at Berklee. I understand you spent 4 semesters there, or I know that you're already working a lot,
right.
And what did you study at Berklee? What did you get from it?
Well, first of all, I absolutely found my time at Berklee to be like invaluable to what I do now, truly. I mean, I can't talk higher about it. I had a really non-traditional approach to college, in that I luckily right out of high school got a gig in a Broadway show in which the gimmick was it had a teenage cast and a teenage orchestra. And so I moved to New York after high school to work on that show, and that really got my foot in the door in the theater world. So I was really lucky to be able to know what industry I was sort of falling into and what the demands of that were. And also because I always kind of knew I wanted to be an arranger or an orchestrator, producing music centered around mostly acoustic instruments, but with some electronic stuff. That's what I gravitated towards. Berklee, it just was like the perfect place for that. I was a double major in CWP and film because it's all these writing in different styles. As far as I can tell, not a lot of other music schools offer the breadth of that kind of musical creation.
Yeah, I think you're right. You've got the music chops, obviously, but also you've got tech chops. Talk to me about your tech chops.
That's definitely an element of my career that has put me a step forward in so many ways. Just being able to communicate with engineers and with people about tech has been a really crucial selling point to say, oh, I'll do this arrangement and I'll make a mock-up of it, put the tempo map into Pro Tools for you and the engineer so everything's ready to go, set up with markers, and I'll copy the sheet music for you so it looks really nice, it lines up with Pro Tools. That kind of
you're
stuff.
like a one-stop shop here. I mean,
it makes a big difference. And also, time is money when you're in a studio. And usually it's my own money for my side projects, so I need that stuff to really happen. In COVID times, the music tech skills have been pretty much all I now do. So having the skills to do that luckily allows me to not only provide my services for people who want to do online concerts and things like that, benefits, but also a way to still be creative, with other musicians who have similar skill sets, and we can work on things together still remotely. now more than ever, that has become not just important, but that's it. Like, that's really it right now.
Talk to me a little bit about your music video career. I don't know many people who have done music videos of an entire big band that is
Right.
entirely them. Do you edit your own videos? Do you shoot them and edit them?
Yeah, there was a scene on YouTube for people that were sort of doing these like split screen things, and I saw those early on in high school and thought, oh, I want to do some stuff like that. That seems right up my alley. And so now I hire other people to edit my videos for me and shoot them because I know they're going to look a lot more professional. Having the foundation and knowing how to create my own music video content and understanding how editing can be musical, how video editing can be musical, gave me a language to talk to my video editors now and say like, well, here's what's important. And in fact, I found video editors that I can send a score to, like a full score with little notes on it and say, I want this edit here, I need this hit, I need this on camera. Which is really great. So it gave me a way to communicate with them.
How did you write differently for a band that you knew was going to be entirely yourself than you might write for a band that was going to be different people?
Right. I definitely write very differently when I know it's for myself. I know my ability well enough to know, like, I'm not actually a professional brass player, woodwind player, so I know what I can play and what I can't play and what will make me sound good and what is too hard. The good news about being able to record yourself and do this stuff yourself is you do write something that's a little bit too hard and then you actually have to practice. So it's sort of like teaching the fisherman to fish, So like I set up myself to improve myself. It's like a self-fulfilling thing.
You have so many chops and you have so much capacity to do so many different things. How do you decide what's important to you, what your voice and your mission is?
Totally. As a career sort of orchestrator, arranger, producer, particularly in the world of theater, we're just required to have so many different kinds of arranging and producing vocabulary and like all these styles. Every Broadway show is a different genre of music that you have to become kind of a chameleon. And so oftentimes it's hard to think like, okay, well, what is my sound? What combination of instruments am I actually passionate about? It's really become solidified to me that like my thing is always going to be the sound of contemporary large ensemble. That I think is like the way I define what I love to do. So I guess the thing that's important to me now is finding ways to bring this old and classic style of arranging back into the limelight so that younger arrangers and musicians like myself can continue to become passionate about it while updating it to be able to have, a fresh sound in 2020. That really is the thing I love doing the best.
Are there things you're passionate about now that you weren't passionate about necessarily 5 or 10 years ago?
5-10 years ago, I was pretty new to New York. And I was just looking to play. I was playing every side person gig I could get, doing charts for people for free, just to be like, hey, I'll do your horn arrangements for free. If you like them, we keep working together.
Yeah.
Just grinding pounding the pavement a little bit. And luckily, I'm in a position now where a lot of that has paid off. What has become really important to me is now to provide gigs with the money I've made for my insanely talented musician friends that I've met along the way. I give them a gig. And I mean, like, that's the most satisfying thing for me is being able to give gigs to these people who really, really deserve gigs in a time when there aren't a lot of orchestra gigs,
I remember when you were at Power Station doing the big session in Studio C. I remember going in and watching and just thinking, man, this is incredibly clever stuff.
Awesome. That's
Could
awesome.
you tell us about the 8-bit big band? How did that come about?
So right before I left Berklee, I made this 6-song EP of songs from Broadway shows for big band that were sort of reimagined. And I just noticed that Broadway didn't have like a signature big band to call its own, and big band had been my passion. So I started doing that, taking songs from Broadway shows from the past and updating them. And what sparked the inspiration for the 8-bit big band was I went on a trip to Japan, and a friend of mine, Zach Zinger, who went to Berklee, who plays in my band, he's an incredibly talented shakuhachi player. And so I told him, hey, do you know anyone that like maybe give me a lesson? And he was like, oh, I know the perfect guy. He loves teaching. And I went to this guy's house in Tokyo. He was really nice. He gave me like a 2-hour lesson on shamisen and koto, and he gave me his CD. And his CD was a traditional Japanese ensemble, but playing all video game music. And I've always been a lifelong gamer. I've loved gaming and I've loved game music, and I've arranged some game tunes for big band, and like in high school I did, but there weren't any like dedicated pop style, jazz pops, contemporary, large ensembles doing it, a dedicated branding. This is a video game pops orchestra.
Who makes up your audience?
There's this really massive scene for video game music on the internet that I was only a little bit aware of until I started doing this. The word really spreads fast in that scene because they're so communicative on forums and YouTube comments, and Discord servers. They're hungry for good quality video game music bands. There's more demand for it than there are actual artists doing it seems like.
Talk to me about the 8-bit big band community orchestra.
Totally.
I'd listen to that, and it just sounds amazing.
It's massive.
How many people do you have on there? What was the process like? What did you learn?
I wanted to find a way that I could align the community of fans that the 8-bit big band has created, and I know that there's so many 8-bit big band fans that are musicians, both amateur, professional. They played in high school band, they play in community bands. So I thought, much like everybody else, we should do this virtual orchestra thing. And I thought, okay, everybody's playing Super Smash Bros. I'll do the main theme from Super Smash Bros. And I put together a fully orchestral arrangement, and I opened up the submissions. After a couple days, I had 60 to 70 people. I'm like, wow, that's great. That's a huge orchestra. How fantastic. I can't wait.
Yeah.
But submissions are still open for another 6 days. And over the course of those 6 days, it just exponentially grew until we ended up closing at 664 musicians from 44 countries around the world.
That is incredible.
Insane.
That's incredible.
So if you've ever wondered what 3 bass saxes, 4 contrabassoons, and 5 contrabass clarinets sounds like, just listen to that, get a subwoofer and enjoy.
How did you organize this? Did you send out a one sheet, how to record yourself? How many of these were iPhone recordings versus more professional recordings?
I made a fully produced MIDI mock-up. And then I made a version of the mock-up minus each of the sections, right? So minus saxes, minus French horns, minus trombones, minus this, so that the people playing those instruments could just play over the track. And then I used Google Forms to make an instruction thing, record with headphones, record on your phone. Please upload only one file, one video file, and one audio file. And that was pretty much it. I tried to just remove as much of the guesswork as possible with that MIDI mock-up and making it as detailed as I could.
Then I take it you had a video editor that you worked with?
Yeah, and it took her over 100 hours of video editing in a week's time.
Wow.
Yeah, my video team's called Hallelujah Productions. They do all my 8-bit big band videos.
What a great way to engage with your fans, to have them actually play with you.
A lot of people wouldn't have had an opportunity otherwise to sort of go through the process of what it's like to be a professional musician and contribute to something that's released professionally. For a lot of people, it really was a really cool opportunity, which is really meaningful to me,
So you're now at the ripe old age of 30. What advice would you have for your 20-year-old self?
The thing that I guess I learned over the course of the 10 years since I was 20 is, and it's still hard for me sometimes, is when you're first starting out, you want to say yes to everything, literally everything.
Yes,
and there's a period where you should. My period where it started to become okay for me to say no to gigs that I was just not committed to, it came sooner than I thought it was going to, and I wasn't able to recognize it. And being able to say no and not necessarily close yourself off to that person is a really important skill.
That's something that every successful musician who has a career has to go through, is that initially saying yes to everything. Get your foot in the door, let people get to know you. How do you recognize, when it's time to shift over from that?
I have always been a people-pleasing person. And so it's been hard for me to find a way to not do things that my friends ask me to do. I want to help my friends out. I want to say yes to people. I want people to be able to depend on me. I think I had to get to a certain point in my maturity level to look at my own emotions and say now the reason why I'm unhappy is because I just don't need to be doing this. And it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Doesn't mean they're a bad person for asking me. It's nobody's fault. It's just me being able to recognize my own emotions and why they're happening. So it's kind of a skill that I'm still learning. It's also the thing that I've realized in the past few years. It's being able to recognize oh no, I'm not right for that gig. I'm not right for that gig. You need somebody to produce electronic music. I have not really shedded that. And I'm not the right person. And to be able to read between the lines of somebody's email about what they need and go thank you so much for asking me, but I think I'm not actually the right person for your gig. And that's okay. It's easy for me to say this and harder for me to do it. But I guess that the advice I'd give to myself and others that are certainly entering the workforce in this time, now more than ever, trying to find a thing that you do that is different or that is unique, that will set you apart, whether it be online or in person. Right now it's just online. I feel like it's just the most important thing right now. Find a way to create something that feels really an expression of who you are.
Charlie, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, man, likewise.